Are on. Oh, it might help if I turn the mic on. And you're on my Dream Home Radio Show. Opinions expressed are theirs. And I lost the rest of the sheet, so that's it.
Not EXP Realties.
Not EXP Realties or some two radio stations. And here's Paula and Eileen.
Hey, good morning.
Monday? Good morning.
Oh, brother.
I think it might be
And
Monday.
not even a full moon.
Is it Friday the 13th yet? Oh, wait a minute. Is this Monday? No.
No, it's
Monday
not
the 13th.
either.
No,
Oh.
no. We got to blame it on something.
Oh, brother.
So you didn't get to call that game this weekend because of the rain, and so you're all mixed up, right?
Yeah. Well, we were all ready to go.
That wasn't just rain.
Oh, no. And the thing is, we saw the lightning offshore, and of course, Dan Como, who does the color for the games, is a former athletic director at Treasure Coast. So he's sitting there, and he could tell by just the looks of the lightning how far away it is. And so Dan's got this radar out, and he said, "We got 3 minutes." And I'll be darned if it was almost to the second
Really? Wow.
when all of a sudden the Thor guard went off and they had to evacuate all of us.
Wow.
And it's the first time that the school evacuated us in the press box. They usually say, just wait it out. No, this was
Everybody had to go.
get out of Dodge in a hurry. And man, the lightning was just awful.
Wow, that's scary.
It was scary. And what was really bad was Sebastian has got a huge band. I mean, huge, 300 kids. And, they're over on the far side. And they're just, A, they're getting soaked. And B, the lightning was right behind their backs.
Wow.
And, they have to take all their instruments to a
Oh,
truck.
yes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what a mess. Oh, boy.
That would have been like running for your life, basically.
Oh, it was. Well, you were.
Yeah.
And Adam McDonald of the Mets was in a different parking lot, and he was saying, "Man, I was lucky to get into my car
Wow.
because he said a car 2 down from me got hit."
That was Friday night?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was in the grocery store late Friday afternoon, evening, and I was getting ready to go to my car. I had my umbrella and put my umbrella up, and a lightning strike. I mean, as quick as it hit the ground, you heard the thunder, so it was really close.
Yeah.
And I think maybe I won't put this lightning lot up.
Yeah.
Right.
Stay undercover for a few minutes.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Oh man, scary.
Yeah, it is scary. And then Dan, we were talking as we are putting the gear away, mentioned that that he had been hit on Daytona Beach
Wow.
by lightning. And this was lightning that hit at I-95. Now, the beach at Daytona is a long way from
From
I-95.
95.
Yes.
Yet he was hit on the beach.
That's
And
amazing.
it was like, whoa.
Yes, I've
So-
heard that it can travel underground.
Yeah, I don't know where it travels.
I
but
don't
boy,
know either,
It's
but
scary.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And I, by the time the rain finally stopped on Saturday, I said, everybody's lakes should be full now.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. Yeah. Well, and and seriously, folks, if you're ever in an event and you hear a siren go off, that is Thor alert, and that means it's lightning, and the lightning is
Imminent.
is within 10 miles.
Wow. That's close. Yeah.
And some of them, like that stadium, it's 6 miles. So and Adam was laughing. He says, of course, if this was the St. Lucie Mets, we would be playing through it.
Oh man.
And I said,
Really?
really?
Wow.
He said, all the fans have to leave, but the players,
Players
have
keep
to
going,
stay."
huh?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
That's
yeah.
a little scary.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. That's
and you're
amazing.
playing with aluminum bats.
Bats,
Yeah,
that
really.
Makes a lot of sense.
They have their
Oh,
own lightning rods.
oh, God. So how are you guys doing this weekend?
Doing well.
Oh, yes.
Doing
Was a
well.
busy weekend, but we're doing good. Yes.
Good.
Yes. So before we bring on our guest, who I am very excited to bring on today, we have a really good up-to-date current topic to talk about. I wanted to just remind everybody that if you want to call into the show for any real estate related conversation, you can call us at 772-340-1590. And our contact information, you can get to Paula and I by calling or texting 772-200-5105. The email is mydreamhometeam@yahoo.com. And our website, www.mydreamhomeusa.com.
Very cool.
Perfect.
I've heard scurrilous rumors you're going to be at the chili cook-off.
Yes, I'm planning to
Woohoo.
in the WPSL booth.
Yeah. You going to wear your chili stuff?
Chili stuff.
Do you have a chili themed?
Oh my goodness.
Outfit?
Do I need that?
I don't know.
I'll have to find something.
Well,
I
it's
have
a,
a mask that's Chili's.
it's a Halloween thing.
We'll be
Well,
celebrating
actually-
Paula's birthday too.
Oh, don't tell anybody that.
Oh,
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh,
October baby. Yeah.
maybe we'll get you
Old
a-
baby.
a chili cake.
Oh, that
Oh
would be
no.
nice.
Huh?
What the heck
But
is
a
a
nice
chili cake?
chocolate cake with jalapeno.
Oh,
Oh, my.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not
look
sure
at
about
this.
that
My
one, but-
glasses are heating up already.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, I'm
Oh,
I'll have to tell you, I'm grateful, but you can pass on that. That'd be fine.
No, I could
I
ask.
like chocolate, but I'm not sure about the chilies.
I could ask one of our Mexican restaurants put together some mole and put together a mole cake.
Oh, now that
Yeah.
that might be a good idea.
It's hot stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if I could eat any of that. We just had cayenne pepper and some soak for chicken the other night, and I was like, whoa, could have left the pepper out for me, but that's okay.
It's good in vanilla ice cream.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I'm not usually a real spicy flavored fan, but a lot of people love it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
My
Yeah.
brothers, I don't know how they swallow some of the chili they eat. It's so hot. It's just crazy.
But anyway, we
yeah, a
will-
lot of people like that.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll be there on the 23rd Met Stadium from 11 to 4.
And that is a fundraiser for Boys and Girls Clubs of
Yep.
St. Lucie County. So it's an excellent
Great group. Yeah.
event to participate in. It's free admission. You only pay when you want to try chili.
Yeah. Yeah. They have those little packets and got little tiny individual bowls. Well, they're not bowls, but cups.
Cups. Yeah.
And you can go from booth to booth to booth. and
Oh, that sounds
test the
fun.
chili.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Mr.
have
G is
lunch and
making
dinner.
those.
Just
Yeah.
bring your Tums.
Yep.
No. For
Oh,
me,
come
anyway.
on. It's not that bad.
Just for me. Just for me.
Oh,
No, it'll be fun to
geez.
try though. That'll be fun.
Of course, our government raised the debt ceiling last week.
Oh, naturally.
Yep.
They had to do
Um,
something, but
I wanted to read this little comment in this article that I read on Friday, which is from the National Association of Realtors. NAR is encouraged by reports congressional leaders are working on a short-term debt ceiling extension following their meeting with the president of NAR. With more than 8 trillion in mortgage debt backed by the federal government, the real estate sector is highly susceptible to market instability. A debt default would unleash unnecessary and unknown harm on the economy and countless of American families. We encourage, wait, I skipped a line, and rising interest rates would serve a devastating blow to the homeownership dreams of countless American families. We encourage Congress to keep working on a long-term debt ceiling solution to maintain stability and faith in the American economy.
Make it 3 weeks next time.
It's not, yeah, really. It's not always a great idea to have the cost of living rise.
As if it
That's all I
hasn't
wanna
already.
say. That's all I want to say.
yeah.
It hasn't already?
It's not quite
been
to where
shopping
it was in
recently?
the 70s when or
It's
the 80s
ridiculous.
when we bought our house.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And the next thing that will happen is they will raise interest rates. And
Yeah.
then people who are on the border of being able to afford a home or afford a mortgage for a home are going to be not able to afford it again because interest rates have gone up, prices have gone up, and their salaries have not gone up.
That's right.
Mhm.
I love those 18% interest rates.
So
Thank you, Jimmy Carter.
We were at 27 when we bought our first place.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it
I
was
thought we
high.
were bad in San Diego.
Oh, no,
We
it
were
was way up
we
there.
were like 18 or 19.
yeah, when we moved to Michigan, that was 1981 when we moved to Michigan. And to get a mortgage, interest rates then were 16.5%. That's why we bought our house on what was called a land contract.
Wow.
Basically, a seller financed it for us
Yeah.
because
Wow.
we paid half the interest that way.
Wow.
That's good.
Yeah, we bought our house in 76 and it was ridiculous in San Diego. And whoa, that was really rude.
Yeah. That was, I can't believe we didn't have a clue what we were doing. Obviously.
Wow. You paid how much?
I want to say 27. It may
Oh
not
my
be right. My
God.
memory's
was
not
that?
all that wonderful. Late 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Maybe it wasn't that high then. I don't know. My memory's terrible. So I just know it was astronomical for us, especially it was.
Sure, sure. Oh, by the way, for all of our listeners, and I know we have listeners in several cities, and actually we're averaging somewhere between 21 and 28 foreign countries every day. But if you're thinking of leaving California, Governor Newsom, our dear buddy, is going to tax you.
To leave.
There is a new exit tax in California.
Oh, I heard an Eastern state doing that too. I don't remember
Connecticut?
which one. Connecticut.
Oh,
Yeah, I
I'm-
knew there was some
Yep.
state on the East Coast that was doing that also.
My buddies at ESPN,
Don't you love
who
it?
moved down here. And what California's doing the same thing Connecticut is. There is a 5-year look back at your income.
Good grief.
Oh yeah. It's like, you've got to be kidding. And you can't leave. That's why Elon Musk, who moved 90% of his company to
Texas. Yeah.
kept that god awful plant in Fremont,
So you wouldn't get taxed.
which is considered by even the auto workers the worst plant in America. It's like he kept it there so California could not
Do
pull that exit
tax
tax
on
on
it.
it
Wow.
because he actually still has property there.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it's brutal. Brutal.
Darn.
Okay,
Think you have a
so
guest. The
let's
poor
talk
guy's
about
like,
let's talk about something else that the government has their hand in.
oh, now what?
What don't they have their hand in?
Okay, first of
Oh.
all, I am very pleased to welcome Phillip Keck to our show today. He is the owner of Palm City Insured, and we are going to discuss the new flood insurance and regulations and whatever else that goes with it. So good morning, Phillip. It's wonderful to have you
Morning.
here today.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, we saw that heavy rain come through from our daughter's softball on Friday too. It was wild. We were in Palm City here, luckily, but we could see that storm passing up in Port St. Lucie and those heavy rains coming through. And it kind of bridges me right into this conversation really that we're talking about today. And that is flood. And, we're in a unique situation here in Florida. And, much like, other parts of the country, we actually have, instances here where, of course, that can cause floods, things like hurricanes. Of course, geez, even our Friday night weather, as we discussed earlier on the show, can cause some of these type of rising water events.
Mhm.
And so, flood insurance as one of our family protections, as one of our protections, is frankly one of the most important coverages that we talk about as an agency. Let's face it, it protects one of our most important assets, and that is the asset of our home. And
Right.
there's a couple things too that I want to talk about specifically today. also because there's some really big misconceptions that we've been running into in the current marketplace with folks thinking they have coverage for rising water as part of their homeowners policies and actually finding out that they don't actually carry those coverages.
Well, and unfortunately, too many times they find out after the fact, don't they?
Unfortunately, yes, it becomes a situation where they've, now had some type of a claim, and they're, reviewing their policies and all of their documents, and because of the nature of the damage or the nature of the rising water event, they find out, unfortunately, that they're not covered. You're exactly right, and that's one of the big things we want, folks to understand is what constitutes being really covered from a rising water type event. And, the best way, of course, is going to be to get that flood policy. But as you said, beginning, and I want to kind of jump off this conversation with a really important point, which is one of the reasons that we're kind of having this conversation today, and that is government flood and the government involvement in the National Flood Program. So a lot of folks don't realize, but the government actually offers a government-backed, nationally accepted flood program. And so all of the different insurance carriers in the marketplace, whether it be Allstate or Nationwide or National General or Progressive, all these different companies, independents like ourselves, they offer these flood policies through what's called the NFIP. And that is very simply, it's the National Flood Insurance Program. So it's essentially a way that the government has been able to standardize this important protective coverage kind of across all platforms and all states. So basically they say for $250,000 in coverage for your dwelling and structure, and then for another $100,000 for your contents in that structure, you're looking at about $600 in coverage or cost on those policies for the year. And this is standardized across the entire country. So if you're in New York, if you're in Florida, if you decide you want to protect your family with this type of flood, you can go out to any registered insurance agent like myself and purchase what we call an NFIP, or a National Flood policy. And so what we have seen in the last couple of weeks actually is, because of some of these things that we've seen with budgetary constraints and things that we've got going on with Congress and trying to get the balance, budgets, we actually unfortunately saw a closure for the first time in my career to the National Flood Program. The program itself has actually been on life support since about 2007. So they continually kind of renew it, and with no real plans right now for a permanent solution. They did, as you said, Eileen, they did renew, thank goodness, that the program with part of that budget this last week. And we expect to then see, an iteration of that come through this next week, when hopefully they get, another budget passed. But during that time period, we were unable to write any clients new National Flood Program policies. And we were also unable to service the current National Flood Program policies because of that closure. So really the danger here is, if you had one of those policies and you had a claim during that time, you were at least going to wait 3 days to have a conversation with someone about your policy. And from what we were reading as agents, we weren't sure how they were then going to honor these programs if in fact they did stay closed. So
Because they weren't sure either.
exactly. And this is the unfortunate part of the current situation with this budget ordeal. They're still trying to figure out how they're going to permanently fund the programs. And, obviously there's going to have to be, some type of taxation or something that addresses this. They've done a good job over about the last 5 or 6 years, where they have, steadily increased the premiums on the policies in an effort to, one, keep the program kind of intact, and two, of course, to remain viable, because in a national catastrophe or a flood event, a lot of these policies get called into question at the same time. And so that's been an effort to try to make sure, of course, that they could then pay those claims to, the insured populace as they come through.
And of course, because, well, maybe not of course, I should ask you, is part of the issue the fact that they kept the rates so low for so many years and the number of claims have increased so much over the last several years that compounds the issue?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have seen, an effort to try to keep the premiums down, of course, for the American consumer. But you're exactly right. In doing so, they did deplete some of the funds or in the coffer to be able to maintain the program. And then also too, secondarily, one of the other things that we saw happen and are seeing happen, and this is much more based on things out of our control that are just purely environmental. And that is we were seeing much, much more rising water type events. And, some folks believe that it may be due to climate change. There's so many different things that can go into these things, but we have absolutely in the last 2 years alone seen about 26% increase in rising water and flood in events in our entire country. So it's not just the state of Florida. This has been nationwide that we're seeing a dramatic increase to these type of events. And you're exactly right. So they're paying out on them more often. And there still needs to be, the right pieces in place to make sure that we're taking in enough money on the program to make it viable.
Yeah, remember those rising oceans in Denver.
Well, I think
That's
that's
right.
I think that's one of the big misconceptions. People think that flood insurance only covers coastal properties on the ocean, but that's not true because there are so many interior waterways
Events.
that are
Yeah.
covered by this flood insurance also.
You bet. I mean,
Flash floods.
when we were in Tucson, when the arroyos overflow
Yeah.
during the big storms,
Yep.
yeah, you have those water
Flooding.
events in the
Yeah.
desert.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You bet.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest things that we run into too, and this is where it gets really scary for the consumer, is the misconception that, especially here in Florida, our homeowners policies actually cover a rising water event.
None of
And-
them
and
do they?
They don't. They really
I didn't
don't.
think
And
so. No, none of them
What?
do. Yes, correct.
I didn't know that.
now there are certain homeowners carriers that do offer a private flood option as part of the bundle or the package. And we'll talk a little bit about the private flood piece in a minute, because that's going to be a really important way for the consumer to be protected throughout all of this. But one of the big things that we're also seeing is we're seeing a big increase, of course, to the payouts. We're seeing a big increase to these instances. And when a hurricane hits, and this is the really important thing, if we have a rising water event that is due to a hurricane, and we have a rising water event that comes into our homes, we are not covered. And we say, well, wait a second. That rising water was caused by a hurricane, right? So that hurricane came in, it rained, it caused our lakes or our rivers to overflow, and now we have it in our house. I'm covered. I have hurricane coverage. The only way that we have on these deals to be covered in a rising water event, even from a hurricane, is with flood. And the only way that you're really going to get damage covered from a water event in a hurricane is if perhaps the roof comes off, or we have some type of an intrusion event where it comes in around doors or windows or things like that. That's really the only time that we see those covered. In fact, we saw Hurricane Harvey a few years ago come and put about 15 inches of rain in an hour on I-10 in Houston. And those poor folks down there all had hurricane coverage because they're a coastal community, but very, very few had flood coverage. And one of the big things that I hear in my daily interactions with clients is, well, I'm not in a flood zone. I don't need it.
Well, I'm not even
All-
sure that who created the flood maps understand the flood maps anymore. Because I've heard for 10 years they were going to be changed. I don't know if they ever did that.
Well, and we look at it like this. All of Florida is a flood zone.
I hear that more and more all the time.
And most of us are adjacent to a canal, a body of water in our backyard, whether it be a retention pond or whether you're on the golf course in your community. All of these types of things. We have a retention pond right out here, and I have seen it come up well over the banks, and have wondered just about how long it would take for that to come into our bedroom or our living room. And these are the important things that we don't realize, that doesn't matter if we're designated in a flood zone, a bad Friday night storm that comes through can put 6 to 8 inches of rain in one storm, which can absolutely overwhelm our drainage systems, which can absolutely put our retention ponds over their banks and cause extensive damage to, let's face it, one of our most precious assets, which is our homes.
Look at Hope Sound last year.
Absolutely. They had over 3 feet of water in the roadways over there.
Yeah.
And it's not a designated flood area. And yet numbers of homeowners were inundated with over a foot of water, unfortunately, in their properties.
That would then be considered a flood issue or a rising water issue. It wouldn't be just a natural disaster type situation.
You're exactly right. So anytime that you have multiple residences, and typically you're going to see those residences within 1, 2, 3, 4 houses all together.
Right.
Anytime we experience those types of event where we have water intrusion into all of the properties, absolutely, that is going to be considered a flood event and would be covered under that flood policy.
Okay.
So the bottom line is, if you live in Florida, you should have flood insurance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So anywhere in Florida, the middle of the state we're seeing a lot more instances there where heavy rains are coming in and creating flood issues. Coastal communities that have typically not had as much because we have the draining in the arroyos, all of those things that we are still seeing intrusion events and these types of events. So absolutely, the best way to be covered is to get a flood policy. We can absolutely still do national flood insurance program policies. We still offer them on all of our platforms. But I think one of the biggest ways that we're really seeing efforts to help protect the consumer right now, and that is in the private space. So with everything that we kind of have going on, all of the uncertainty within the different programs, we actually offer a number of different carriers on our platforms that offer what we call private flood. And so there's 2 real big benefits to going kind of into the private market. The first one, and this is probably the biggest for our folks that have been utilizing a national flood insurance product, there is a national maximum in which the coverage they can get. So it doesn't matter who you are or where you live, there's a maximum coverage that they will allow. It's $250,000 for your dwelling, and it's $100,000 for your contents. And so, of course, we all know if we have a big home or a home that's worth or valued more than that, that may leave us exposed to, some out-of-pocket expense in the event of a flood as well.
So let me ask you a question. These $1 million homes on Hutchinson Island, multi-million-dollar homes on Hutchinson Island, if they have flood through the National Flood Insurance Program, if they have that kind of coverage, they're only going to get $250,000, even though they have a multi-million-dollar house.
That is correct, because that is what the program's maximum coverage will allow. Exactly right.
That even includes my house out there with at Jensen Beach.
Yeah.
There you go.
That monster
Sure
home.
does.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
Wow.
Grief.
So you need,
Don't you
you
love
need
it?
some backup, or can you do both then? Can you get the private as well as the national, or if you have one, you can't have the other?
You're only allowed to have the one type of flood, and they're good for a year. So once you do put it into place, it's actually not cancelable. So if only way you can cancel a flood policy is if you were to sell the property.
Oh.
So they are good for a year, and you can only have the one.
Or if you
know,
don't pay for it, right?
Or of course, yes, if you don't pay for it, they will cancel it.
Yeah.
Of course, but we typically do the payments on the front end on those, and they are always going to be a pay in full, type premium too. That's not one they typically break out into the modals. But and, to your point exactly, Eileen, the one of the crazy things is we know we have some of the finest real estate in the country in this area. The Palm Beaches, the Treasure Coast. I mean, really the whole entire state of Florida. Let's face it, the West Coast, Orlando. We have some of the best and finest real estate in the country, especially in our coastal communities. And private flood actually allows our homeowners to go above those limits. So we could actually come in and insure a property up to $700,000 for the dwelling. We could insure the contents, well above that 100,000 mark. So for our folks who, have some of the higher end, type properties, we absolutely have the right coverage to get them covered. But also too, the complete other side of that is for someone, I had 2 last week that came to me, and they were in what we call a high risk flood zone. So this has been one of the areas like an AE or they are coastal. They have a very good chance of flooding. And some of these types of properties, it might get a little bit pricey to take higher limits, right? So even to get up to the National Flood Program average of the 250 for your dwelling and 100,000, if you're in a really high risk flood zone, that can get kind of pricey for the homeowners. And so what a lot of times we can do is those same homeowners will still have a requirement of their mortgage to make sure that they maintain a flood policy as part of that. But we also understand that not every homeowner is going to be able to afford a really expensive flood policy. Sometimes when we get into these high risk areas, you could be looking at several $1,000s a year for a flood policy.
Well, but my thought is that because going in that you're going to need that insurance in that area.
And
So
that
that's a
you're high
choice you're
risk.
making.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your investment.
If that's
Right.
where you want to be, then you need to be willing to pay the
Sure.
price of the insurance to insure that investment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Phillip-
then really the key there is you can actually go below that limit too. So if we wanted to say, for example, I had a client last week, their budget wasn't, they were in one of these areas that became a high risk flood zone. And so they actually had the ability to take minimal coverage. I think we gave them 50,000 for their dwelling and 10,000 for their contents on the private marketplace. But we were still able to get them covered within their budget and still maintain the lender requirement, which was really, really important for that particular client. But you're exactly right. I think if you're buying in a coastal community in some of these areas, you certainly understand that there are some of these pieces that come along with that.
Right.
Phillip, what's the price point difference between the feds and private?
So it's very much dependent on the property itself and the flood zone. But I would say, and I'll give you an example from my property in particular. I went the private route for my home because I did want to have a little bit higher coverage. We're looking at right now the national average on the flood program being about $600. For higher coverage on my property here, I was actually able to do it for about $656 for the year. So
That's
is
not much difference.
No.
it is going to be a little bit more. We want folks to understand there is a premium to kind of going to that private marketplace. So it will cost you a little bit more out of pocket on the front end. It's not crazy. And the other thing, and this is the really powerful thing too, unlike the National Flood Program, Most folks don't realize too, the only way that you can get a national flood program policy right away is if it is for a closing. So if you were to come to me today, Eileen, and say, I would like a national flood policy, I would say, not a problem. Let's go ahead and get this in place. There is also a 30-day wait.
Period.
Right.
So with private flood, we actually have the ability to protect a client day of. So, and the only time that we're not going to be able to see that coverage be available is when we have a named storm that is, approaching the coast. Once it becomes named, they do close these programs.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
All closings wait.
Right.
Absolutely.
I've experienced
absolutely.
that in the past with clients. Yes.
So it is something to keep in mind. But again, this is empowering the people. This is really giving the consumer the protective tools and the ability to protect themselves day of, to take higher limits and better protect their properties. This is one of the biggest things that scares me when we have these conversations with our homeowners clients, and they, of course, we bring this to everybody, and they choose, if someone were to choose not to work with the programs, is just leaving themselves out there and exposed to some of these risks. And I got so nervous last week when we saw we had a 3-day gap in national flood coverage, and we have 2 months left of hurricane season almost.
Oh, right.
Yikes.
So we are not out of the woods yet. I mean, knock on wood, we've had a phenomenal year so far. We've here in this part of the state, we've managed to keep those away, but that can change within an instant, and we could have something, within a week. And so that's really important for the consumer to be able to know there are tools available to them. Don't be nervous, about protecting your property. You really, really can get a great tool for flood. It's not crazy expensive. And even if you're in a high-risk flood zone, we can get you day of coverage in many cases.
That's
So
awesome.
Philip, before we go any further, please give everybody your contact information.
Absolutely. So anyone can reach out to us on our direct line here in the agency to discuss, any of these programs at 772-252-5713. And then our website, which oftentimes will have a lot of this type of information, is www.palmcityinsured.com. And we welcome anybody. We would love to spend the time with folks and really discuss how we can help them make sure that we're getting them protected.
That's awesome.
Great. So I know that the time is going long, but I thought this was such an important conversation. I wanted to give you as much time as you needed to explain options to people so that they know they really do have options.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. It is like we said, it's one of the most important things that we're talking to our consumers about right now. And so thank you guys so much for again, letting me come and spend the morning with you and have these lovely conversations. We always enjoy it. And again, if anybody would love to speak with us, we would love to speak with you. We are our Palm City Insured. We're your full service property and casualty agency, not only on the Treasure Coast, but really serving the whole entire state of Florida. So thanks again, Eileen.
So can I ask you one more topic about this, Philip?
Yeah, please.
This was in our Florida Realtors Public Policy Report, which we get every Friday. And this talks about the fact that there is going to be a new rating system from FEMA. And some of it, from what I understand, if you are buying a new policy, it takes effect right away. But if you have an existing policy, there's a delay until April 1st for it to take effect. What's that all about?
We're actually still waiting on some guidance with these programs as well. And I'll be frank with you, we just received a similar notation from one of our folks this morning as well on those programs. What I would bet that we're seeing is it's an effort to probably limit taking on new policies. while they're trying to figure this out. So anytime we see a carrier or a government entity or any of the types of programs like that, say we're going to, basically allow one group to continue and then keep another group from basically obtaining new coverage or, extending those things. There's two things that are probably happening. One, they're looking at rates. So they're in the background really trying to figure out what that next iteration of the product is going to be and how much to charge for it. So that would be probably what I would think we're seeing there. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure how to fully interpret the language there. And that will definitely be something that we'll keep our eyes on for you. And as we get more information too, I will let you guys know. And that may even be an opportunity for us to spend a couple more minutes here, going back through that stuff.
That's
You're
great.
always welcome because you bring such great information for everyone. So yeah,
Well,
your visits are always welcome.
we just love it. We wear so many hats as agents, and one of the most important ones we wear is that of an educator, because we find that once our clients and consumers are fully educated on the products, on the protections, only then can they really make the proper decision on what's going to best fit kind of their needs and what's going to best fit their family. So
Yeah,
we want to make sure
Yeah.
we spend a lot of time really teaching folks about, insurance and what they do for their household.
Well, I was going to say a perfect example is ourselves. When we first moved here, we bought flood insurance, and then we thought, well, we're really not in a flood zone. We're really not this, we're not. And so we didn't buy it for a couple of years. And then I heard the situation where it doesn't matter whether it's from a hurricane or if it's just high water, you need flood insurance, whether you're in a flood plain or not. And so I convinced my husband to purchase it again. It's like, you know what? There's too much in here that would get damaged in the house. It would be very difficult to replace, all of what needed to be fixed if water
Right.
was
And
the
you're not really
damage.
that far from the river.
No, not far at all. No. So, and the rivers fill up just as quick as anything
Oh,
else.
sure.
Yes, they
You
do.
bet.
Absolutely.
So whether
Absolutely.
it's a flash flood or just, from high water. So I convinced him, I said, there's no point in us taking a chance that we're not going to get water, so it makes you feel better. It makes you feel like you've at least got some help if it
Absolutely.
Well,
Just-
And you're being proactive.
And
Yeah,
what Philip was
right.
talking about too, the fact that the private, for what, basically a
A few-
cost of a dinner,
Yeah.
and it's instantaneous rather than that 30-day
Day
waiting
wait
period
period. Right.
with
Right.
the pets.
So I think it's definitely a positive thing to do for yourself.
Yes. And it's never too soon.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I'd like to make another comment also. The fact that Philip considers his business primarily an educational process for the consumer is the reason that I send customers to him, because his business is all about service and education, just as ours is,
Absolutely.
which I think is the most important for people.
Right. Exactly.
Still, the home is the largest investment that the majority of people make in America, and any information we can bring to them to help them make a better decision in that process is well worth the time.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Great information. Thank you.
So thanks so much, Philip. I will see you on Wednesday morning, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Absolutely. And thank you, everybody. And I'll leave you with a parting word. And that is, be kind to one another. It is always possible. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bill.
Have a great day.
Wow. What a wealth of knowledge.
That is amazing. Yeah.
In the private option, I'd never heard of. That's great.
Oh, I heard of it, but you know how rumors go. It's so much more expensive and all this.
That's what I've
you don't
heard.
until you actually get the information, you're everything is speculation. So it's good to get the information from the horse's mouth, as they
Yeah.
say.
Yep. Oh boy.
Well, and from the things that you hear on the news, it seems to me like when big storms happen, it's taking longer and longer and longer and longer for people to be able to recover from those. There are still people in Louisiana that don't have power a month later.
Right. Right.
Well, and you know, a perfect example, when IRSC was up in Niceville for the state tournament, the bus went by Mexico Beach. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
Right.
They
yeah.
haven't even started reconstruction yet.
Right.
I mean, they have, but you know, very.
But relatively speaking, it's
Oh,
just
yeah, it's deserted.
minuscule.
But you wonder, are the people that haven't been able to begin recovery or begin building, did they have coverage?
Yes,
They may not have any way
they're
to,
fighting with their insurance
These
companies to
companies?
this day.
yeah, well, that's a shame. Yeah,
Yeah,
that happens.
and that's so sad. So sad. Yeah, I mean, you really have two disasters then.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know, you lose your house, and then the battle with
Right. Right.
the insurance company. Yeah,
Right. And you lose your house and you still, I mean, that's where you lived. That's where your life was.
sure.
And not only can't you rebuild, but what are you doing in the meantime to survive? How are you staying and say in the same area? Did you have to relocate? What about the job that you had? You know, I mean, it becomes just so
It's an astronomical.
compounded.
Yeah.
It's like never-ending questions. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Time
Okay.
has flown by. Philip,
It really
great.
has.
That was awesome.
Paula has the MLS up and she's going to give us a few of the properties that are on the market right now.
Right. Well, we were looking at properties that are actually waterfront or near the water. And this first property is actually in Palm City. It's a 3-bedroom. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm incorrect. 4-bedroom, 3-bath home. 2,834 square feet. It is waterfront with a pool. Give me 1 second if I can figure out how to, unfortunately, my printer wouldn't work last night, so I'm having to do this live. And then it's not wanting to do what I want it to.
That's okay. Just tell us what they're asking for it.
Well, they're actually asking $815 for it. And as I did this, knowing that it was going to be waterfront property, I looked at the tax records to get the floodplain information. And a lot of times, some of the properties are not in flood zones, so they don't require flood insurance. But then some of them tell you that within 4 feet, it has you have a risk of flood. And most of them are like, this flood could be inundated with a category 3 or a category 5. So it gives you a lot of information about what type of insurance you would need for the property.
So the counties have that on an appraised list?
It's in.
Well, it's in the
MLS list.
No,
it's in
tax.
the tax
Taxes.
information,
Okay,
which
yeah.
is public information.
Sure.
Right.
But we have the ability to go into that tax information
Sure,
through our
sure.
MLS system.
Right.
Yes.
And give you that, and give you some
Right.
of that information.
I think it's also important for people to understand that their insurance company or their mortgage company can require that they have certain kinds of insurance. So don't be surprised if you're getting a mortgage or when you go to get your homeowner's insurance on your property that you're going to purchase and the insurance company says to you that they are going to require you to have flood insurance as well.
Right. Right.
That requirement can come from either one of those entities.
So then there's another property that is in Stewart. This is actually a little bit smaller than the other one, a little manufactured home, and I cannot get it to change. 1 second. Okay, it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home, 1,431 square feet. It is waterfront. It's on a canal, and they're asking $282,000 for it. So you can be on the water for millions or for quite less, depending
less,
on what you
yes.
like. But you still have that luxury of having a waterfront property.
And remember,
So-
not all canals go anyplace. Some canals are just canals.
Well,
for
that's
overflow
true.
in Florida, basically for overflow water.
Right, right, part of our system, but some of them actually do, you have access to the river to get
Right,
to
to
the
the
ocean
waterways
if
to
you
get to
wanted
the ocean
Right,
or go
right.
fishing in. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So then one more property, let's see if I can get down to another property that
Yeah, this will be the last one. We're running out of
shows.
time.
okay, I may not get there quick enough. Oh, I went through a bunch of these, so,
That's all right. Do you have a Port St. Lucie one?
well, I thought I did. I can't seem to find that one, just a second.
That's okay.
I can't get to it.
Our show
quick
today
enough.
is about water.
Yeah.
Since there is so much
Yeah.
of it in Florida and
Sure.
around Florida, we thought it was important not only to spend the time with Phillip to get up-to-date information about these programs and what you need to know as a consumer, but there's always waterfront property on the market.
No, we had it here. I mean, and you think about the craziness of natural stuff. Well, that little creek that's just to the east of this building,
Mhm.
we had 7 acres of water one time. And it was a tough storm,
Wow.
but it wasn't that bad. But what had happened is a couple of Fort Pierce utilities employees had forgotten to open the floodgates by Orange Blossom Mall
Mm,
and open the floodgate right outside of here. Everything backed up at both the Orange Blossom Mall and here. Yeah, it was.
Yep.
It was touch and
That
go
only,
for a while.
that doesn't just happen in Florida. My son experienced that in Michigan this year.
Oh
Yeah.
wow! I
Yeah.
can't believe we're done already.
I know. Wow.
Cool.
Have a wonderful week, everybody. Thanks for joining. You can reach us at 772-200-5105 and have a great week.
Have fun.
What's
Have a
your
nice day.
website?
Oh, www.mydreamhomeusa.com.
Okay, and how do we get you on email?
mydreamhometeam@yahoo.com.
All right, and
Good
the
job.
phone number 200.
772-200-5105.
Cool.
Have
All
a
right.
wonderful day.
All right. Happy Monday. You've been listening to My Dream Home right here on WPSL Port St. Lucie and WSTU Stewart.